I got my laptop on, and I feel alright. I got a few joints rolled, and my munchies made. Got my headphones on, and I close the door, don't disturb me. It's time to stand up tall and say some things about the shitty world we're living in, with the voice of Raconteurs News. Raconteurs, 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 Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News. Oh yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Tuesday night on Raconteurs News. I'm Andy Young and I'm joined tonight by two of my fellow raconteurs. Jason's having a night off tonight. He's just doing the Facebook live feed for us. But tonight we've got Paul Bills of Exchange Webster. Good evening, Paul.
Hey Andy, you okay, pal?
I'm very good. Are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
And we've got Aid, also known as that northern boy that can sing a bit. Evening, Aid. How you doing, fella?
I'm good, mate. You?
Yeah, great. So I've just I've had a really weird day today. It's felt like I've just not been firing on all cylinders. Almost like being stoned all day, but not having anything to get stoned with. It's really quite strange. So maybe not be on my best form tonight, but to be honest, I don't think I need to be, because we've got an excellent guest. I was saying last night, some of the chats we've had already have blown my mind. So I guess we'd better get on and introduce tonight's guest. No, before we introduce tonight's guest, I just wanted to say something I've been trying to watch while I was chilling out. It's been on my to-do list for a long time, ever since it came out, really. And that was the interview that Joe Rogan did with Tom DeLonge over to the Stars Academy. And I'd heard a lot about it. I didn't believe it could possibly be as bad as what I heard, but my God, it was awful. I mean, Tom DeLonge came across as, just imagine the scenario. Had a lifelong interest and a passion about the ufology subject, and you've got a mate who you've just met, and he found the subject about 3 weeks ago, and he's seen a couple of YouTube vids and read half a book, and he's trying to educate you. That's how it came across. It was bloody painful to watch. It really was. And there's no wonder the Stars Academy seemed to have pushed Tom DeLonge to the sideline from my point of view. So I see we've got a busy chat room tonight. We've got John Hall, we've got Crappy Leeds, and we've got Jason Powers all the way over in Canada. Good evening, Jason. We've got Dinny. Dinny's sat sucking his dummy in the middle of his forest in Germany. We've got a right international crowd in tonight. And I did see somebody registering for the site from El Segundo in California this morning. So if whoever you are over in California, if you're listening, good evening over there as well. It'll be getting on for midday over there. I bet it's lovely over there this time of year. Anyway, tonight we've got a guest on that Paul first brought to my attention, and we've had a couple of chats in the meantime, and I think for me to do an introduction to Alan would probably do him an injustice. So, Alan, welcome to the show. Could you possibly give us a little bit of a background on yourself? What got you started on what you're doing, and the kind of journey you've had, and what kind of twists and turns there's been along the way to bring us to where we are now?
Yeah, hi guys. I hope everyone's feeling well out there. About me, I'm a bit weird, a bit daft. I love bucking the system. I've never felt like I fitted in. Done well with the system, then got kicked out of it. Been a bit homeless, helped someone with cancer, using oil. Then I had to give up work about a year and a half ago. It's not that long ago, really. I had a couple of bills that were bothering me, you know, with the income that I was going to get through being a carer, just really screwed me. And I thought, you know what, there's folk that don't pay these, I better do a bit of looking. And I stumbled across a couple of videos, as everyone does, and they fitted how I felt. They fitted how I'd never ever worked out. How do you have to pay for water? Water, for Christ's sake. You know, you can only last a few days without the bloody stuff. So, as soon as I stumbled on it, I was like everyone else. You tick off the first little things and you find that easy, or stress about it. Then you find out how easy it actually is. I'm a little terrier. I don't let things ride. And I was doing 18 hours a day at it for a long, long time. Some 6 months, 18 hours a day. And, you know, the study, I met some real intelligent folk out there. Paul's videos that he's had on for many years about electric and gas and so forth, they were inspiring. And he kind of threaded the floorboards for us to get us going. And it kind of built up confidence. When you saw things just going away from writing a letter, you thought, this is a good way to make a living. So I spent the first 8 months getting rid of outgoings, to which I'm down almost now. And I've spent the last 10 months on now looking at incomings and the possibilities of that. So not that I've been to court much. I've done a lot of paperwork for people going into court, and it's all just gone away. So whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. But what I have been doing seems to have been working on a high level. Only 2 weeks ago, someone with 4 grams worth of weed in their boot ran off from their car, taken off them. Were being closed by a police officer. We're out hunting for him. He just picked up his car today, no charges, no nothing. And yeah, so things are going good. Working on some really advanced stuff at the minute. And really enjoying it. I get a lot of fun out of it, meeting some great folk. It's pretty much about me, I suppose.
Good stuff, mate. I found it very interesting, the stuff that you're working on now, that, you know, that is very highbrow stuff, very, I can't believe how solid I believe it is. I'm looking forward to the fruition of that when you can actually tell us more about it. But how did you find it with family and friends when you started to do this stuff? Did you get berated? Did they come on side with you? What?
I've got a step-son-in-law, and I drop my missus off, who I'm a carer for, to her daughters every day, and I pick him up. And for the first month or two, he would watch the stuff and learn the stuff, and then he joined me, and he's great with the old computer and all that. And at our age, you know what it's like. You can barely turn your phone on. So he does all the computer stuff for me, for both of us, and my brother as well. My brother was in some right shit when I first started. He had some, quite a lot of stuff bothering him, and he was half the personality he'd ever been. And I'm not kidding. We filled my room floor, the lounge floor, with paperwork. I'd only been doing it a couple of months. We sorted out quite a lot of £1,000 worth of stuff. And then family members were actually really quite chuffed about it. And in fact, my father, who's 78, he don't pay for his water anymore. So, yeah, in that respect, there's a lot of family sceptical, but they see things working and they think, Jesus, why is he not having to pay that? Why is he not having to do that? How did he get away with that? And, it's not getting away with, as we know. It's just knowing how you live, how you're supposed to do it.
That's the first myth, isn't it? That's the first myth that gets dispelled when you realise that everything that you've been taught about how the economy works with bills and stuff like that, it's completely opposite to how it's meant to work. One of the biggest things for me that slapped me in the face was if the money that I'm trying to use, and I put money in speech marks,
Yep.
if the money I'm trying to use comes with debt, and I'm trying to settle a debt with debt, then I've got double the debt. So therefore, then every time I try and pay a bill, I add to the national debt, which is why it's designed this way, that we struggle to skin ourselves while these bastards steal all our equity, and we don't even know it's there.
Totally. And I think the one that we need, or what we're all trying to get, is we have a position whereby the trustee's position in our trust that we all know about is vacant for any agency to step into and then hand over to us to con us into being the trustee. That's pretty much the crux of the dilemma that we're all in and always have been. I've been on a quest to try and get a formal one-person trustee. I don't want to kill off anything or the straw man or hand it back or this, that, and the other. I want them to actually do what it's supposed to do. I am the beneficiary. I've got the receipt. I'm supposed to get stuff from you, not give you stuff. So appointing a trustee and getting a trustee is the goal, should we say. And I just think it's possible. It will be done. It'll be done quite quickly, I think. I think when you get to that stage, I think what we're going to cover tonight is more for the folk that are still learning, putting a bit of time in that they can manage, and maybe looking for a few things that will stir them on to look a bit deeper, or maybe haven't come across a few of the ideas, and give them a bit of food for thought and maybe a bit of confidence. And that's pretty much why I'm here. I'd like to give people a bit more confidence in what they do, because you know yourself, when you stop your first couple of bills and start questioning, they don't just roll over and go away. You've got a little bit of aggravation to deal with, and that comes with its fear. The indoctrination is so deep. I mean, I'm 50 odd, and so I've had that amount of time of indoctrination. But I think the younger, the 25-year-old today, the indoctrination was far more thorough in their schooling than ours. So whilst they've not had as long being indoctrinated, theirs has probably been a lot stronger.
Mm.
And predominantly they've had Facebook and media, and everything's pushed at them in a far stronger fashion now with the telly and things. That they find it difficult to break free of it, the fear as well.
Yeah, I can understand that. Go on, Ada.
Sorry, Adi.
Yeah, Alan, before you get into the more complicated stuff, you said that the first thing that you did was the water.
Yeah.
Can you just talk us through that process of what you did, what came back to you, and then how it sort of came to an end?
I made a few mistakes initially, and I actually got in touch with them and tried a 3-letter process and things like that. And whilst that gave me practice with the old letter writing and getting a response and things like that, it didn't really ultimately get me anywhere. Apart from, I know they can't cut me off, so there was no fear involved really, apart from I'm going up against someone for the first time. But the latter people that I've helped with it, I've basically just said to them, whatever comes through your door for water, I've got a sticker and a stamp made up. I issue out these stamp stickers regularly to family members, and they just cover the thing, fire it back in the letterbox. Next thing you know, it's the occupier that gets it, sticker on, fire it back in the letterbox. It goes away. It's one of the simple ones. It's probably the first one, along with the TV license, that you just, I don't want your services, sorry, but the pizza menu and the request for something from the TV man or from water, they're just the same. They got the Chinese menu that gets popped through your door every now and again. It's no different. They're just asking if you want to buy some of their services. And
so tell us about the sticker and the stamps. What are they?
Well, can you go and grab me one? I got a stamp made up at Staples. It cost me 20 quid. And it really is quite amazing. I'm going to stamp one up and I'll put it on the screen in a second. Now, it cost me 20 quid and it'll do over 2,000 envelopes. And then you can just get in fact, today we were in there today getting printing and they've brought it down in price. It's now £19. So, yeah, it's really good. I'm just going to pop it on for you and let me know if you see it and you can enhance it. And, can you see it, guys?
Can't read what it says.
I can read it. Return to sender, I do not recognise you, I do not
Consent.
understand your intent, I do not have an international treaty with you, no
Assured
no
value.
assured value, no liability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kiddie.
That's basically denying the commercial agreement, that straight there.
Yeah.
That's basically denying the commercial agreement.
Yep.
So before you sent that off, I assumed that you'd actually been paying for water at that point.
Yeah, I did have. Yeah. And it had gone up to some 50 quid a month. It was,
Right.
there's only two of us. So, yeah, and I thought, you invest a few hours into thinking about not paying the water, for example, and you learn it, and it might take you, I don't know, if someone's not been on it before, it might take them, 2 or 3 hours to work it out, get it done, 20 quid for a stamp, for example, if they're just doing water. That 2 or 3 hours is going to save them that amount of money every month for the rest of their lives. In 1 year, that's 600 quid. Now, that's a week's wage for someone that's earning a decent wage. So, and you've taken 3 or 4 hours for it. That, to me, is value for money,
So Alan, you got this stamp. They sent you a bill, I'm assuming, or what they would call a bill. You stamped that on. No, even though the first one would have been sent directly to you, because you'd been paying them in your name before that.
Yeah, I was on direct debit. I stopped the direct debit.
Right, so what happened after that, once they'd received that back from you?
They just send another letter. They just keep sending out mail. Just fire that stamp on it and forget it. My father didn't write to them once, and that's done and dusted. He just, every time it comes, anything comes with angling water on it, stamp goes on, fire it back. Nothing else. Nothing else. It's that simple. It really is that simple. And that's 10 months, 12 months he's been doing it.
One thing that people will be asking, which is what I get asked a lot, is if you live in a rented accommodation, does that bill then get landed with your landlord and does he come knocking on your door?
We both have rented. I'm in housing association. My father's in private rented. Neither have posed a problem. I think they use the council tax register to work out who's living in there, not the owner.
Right.
And if you've signed any form of lease, the bills are your affair anyway, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They certainly are, yeah. They certainly are.
That would stop them from actually chasing up the owner, unless they thought the property was empty.
Yeah, well, that's when they write into the occupier. They're looking for an empty premises then, and the term premises is another commercial term. So,
yeah, and an occupier is someone that takes something by force. So,
it's a military term. It's a martial law term, occupier. But people don't realise that this country's been under martial law since the Napoleonic Wars. They don't realise that the income tax is a Napoleonic tax. It has to be passed every year because it's illegal.
And there's a chap that stands behind the speaker to remind them of such every April the 1st. But that aside, the war that they class as now is probably the drugs war or the war on terrorism.
So don't worry, next week it'll be the war against Putin.
Precisely. It's never going to... The war's never going to end as long as they've got something that says war.
Yeah.
They can do it.
It's interesting you brought that up then, Adi, about Putin, because there's an RT article just been up that UK scientists can't tell where this Novichok nerve agent has come from now in Salisbury.
Okay, so, that's amazing.
No, who would have thunk? Who would have thought that the highly likely that it was the Russians could go on?
I've had a devastating day. Somebody told me earlier today that what comes on Sky News might not be true. I was devastated.
I sent Andy a little note the other day, a little video. It was about 8 minutes long, and it was something that someone had found off a website or off a desk in Washington, in Columbia, Pennsylvania Avenue or something. You know
Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, that's the kiddie.
Yeah.
And
65,000.
And it was, yeah, that's the one. And he said it was all about the very hierarchy, and it was supposed to be an internal warning to the keepers and this, that, and the other, which is quite highbrow. But anyhow, a lot of that was about WMD, weapons of mass destruction, and stuff like that. And the very, very hierarchy have said that all the keepers, be it governments, are supposed to sort out their little grievances between themselves in an amicable fashion. That they will not tolerate any WMD. And then all of a sudden, I thought of the Russian incident, and I thought, there's a chemical weapon. They don't like that. And I think it's just posturing for power, is all that's about at the minute. I don't think there's anything to do with any chemicals whatsoever. And it's just posturing between various keepers that operate below the
It's
big old...
dick waving, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
dick waving. Who's got the biggest dick? You know what I mean?
Hang on, Dave. We're going to win that. We've got fucking massive dicks down there. Theresa May is one of the biggest dicks I've ever met. If it's a dick contest, we win.
And the Americans have got Dick Cheney. You know.
I think these Western leaders are just the biggest dicks. I mean, look at Israel. If that's not a dick that's running that place, I don't know what a dick is. But, there we go again. Am I being anti-Semitic, or is that a truth? I don't know.
You never know, do you? I mean, you never know. But can you spell Netanyahu?
Yeah, it's D-I-C-K.
There you go. There you go. Sorry, Alan, just getting back to the water, can I ask? Because this is the sort of question I think people will be asking themselves if they're listening to this tonight. When you effectively stamped that envelope and sent it back, at that time, were you on a water meter? Were you just on... Right.
Just normal billing. Water meter, now, as Paul let you know, there's lots of ways of dealing with a water meter. The same with electric and gas. I mean, it's not the product, it's the reading of. And what happened to me in the last week, for example, with a wheel clamp, it's not the fine or the non-road tax or the product that's coming down the pipe work that they're billing you for. The wheel clamp is billing you for the release. And
You're actually being billed for the administration of the account.
Yeah, nothing to do with anything other. They go under the guise that you're getting something when you're not. They're not. You're not being punished with a clamp. You're paying to release it. They've used an excuse with the road tax as a reason to clamp you, but the bill is purely for the release. It's got nothing to do with anything about being you found guilty for this, that, and the other. That's irrespective. No road tax. You get clamped. If you want released, that's the bill. It's got nothing to do with whether you... And then you've got to conform to getting it. Same with the water. No, there's no bill for what comes through the pipe. It's just for the reading. Same with your electric, gas, all of that. It's got nothing to do with what comes through. Only to do with what they're reading.
When they sent you the water bill, Al, what did they actually send you? Did they send you a valid bill, or did they send you an invoice?
First off, they sent me after I cancelled the direct debit, I waited, and then I got a paper bill. Yeah. And then I got something like, I'll show you an electric one in a minute. I got it with the bank gyro slip at the bottom. And I filled that out. I also gave them a promissory note. They retained them both, so it's paid. And it's paid anyway. But they don't like accepting it. But when I go on to the promissory estoppel in a little while, you'll see how whereby you can prevent them from attacking the house with their locksmith and things like that, and still retain their meters, which is quite an interesting option. Not everyone can afford to go out and get meters changed. Can they get someone to change them? It has its own. I know we can find folk that can do it, but it just becomes a little more awkward. And I would rather be pushed up against the wall and then do it, rather than do it now and may never have needed to.
Exactly.
See, Alan, there are people on my street and their water meter is actually on the public pathway, about 8 inches past the boundary of the land. That's where their water meters are. So, what happens in that instance? What typically is what
an area whereby I would have to do a bit more research, because I haven't come across that. I couldn't really go into what's off your property. I know if you've got my electric meters outside my front door, and so they've got easy access. It's a plastic door, but I do know they can't go in it without a warrant, whether it's on the outside or on the inside. If it's off the boundary, I'm less sure.
For me, the first port of call would be contacting, United Utilities and saying, I don't want a water meter, put me back on standard billing.
Yeah.
That would be the first port of call. I mean, it's a bit more difficult with the gas and electric if they know what that you're doing already. But go on, Al.
With the gas and electric, if you happen to be disabled or have a disabled member in the family, you can call them and require them to change over the meters to billing meters because you're disabled. That's an area that can help those people, for example. So you can get rid of the pay-as-you-go meters just by phoning them if you're and they're required to. It takes a few weeks. My brother did it, and they came out, and he was behind in his bill as well. So I would suggest that if you're disabled or you've got a disabled member of the family living in the household, get on the phone, get your meters changed. It's far easier. Life can be made a lot easier just by making that phone call. It might take a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that's got to be your first port of call is to ask them to change it. I mean, I'm privy to a guy from down south who is disabled, who relied on electric for his machinery that administered medication and things like that. Now, they actually broke in. To be fair, the police actually arrested him, took his keys off him, let the gas men in, change his meter, then locked the door, de-arrested him and handed his keys back. Now, this is what people are up against. Now, I found that the further south that you get, the more ignorant and stupid the police are, and the more daring the utility companies are. It's starting to spread everywhere now. It started within the inner cities. You always find it, and it starts within the inner cities because there's nowhere really inner cities can go, especially when you're talking about maybe putting solar panels or stuff like that. They're a bit tied in. And the other places are, when you get further afield to the smaller towns, they'll start it in a small town. The Northern Irish, they've been up in arms. They've been fighting water meters in the street. They've been digging them out of the street and turning them off and everything. People are in trouble with the Garda because the Garda don't understand a fucking thing. And if they do understand it, I think that establishment is corrupt enough to keep up the intimidation. The guy had already started to go through the process before, because he wasn't on meters, pay as you go, and it's when he started the process that they upped the game. And what they seem to be doing, Alan, is they seem to be, because of dickheads like me and you who are challenging this, and other people are now challenging it, they're now putting people in the position of burden of proof. So basically, they're going to fucking virtually cut you off and then say, well, we've done our bit, it's up to you now.
Yeah. This promissory estoppel stuff is probably going to help those type of people.
Then go through that and try and break it down for us, Alan.
Just before you start on that, Alan, we've just got a little question here from Sam in the chat room. He just joined us. And he says, isn't the property boundary the middle of the road or something similar to that? Because you often hear people talking of that.
Yeah, I mean, your actual address is from the centre of the road up to the boundary where your property begins. That's why you will always get on any legal paperwork, it would be the address known as.
Yeah.
Is what it
The
says,
parcel
because
plan, yeah.
the actual address of the house is from the centre of the road up to your boundary.
Yeah.
That's the actual address.
Guaranteed, that's right. The other thing, your address is 90% of your problem. The postcode makes it a commercial property, whereas no postcode, it's non-commercial. That's how they get you with your council tax, you this, that, the other. You are a commercial property because you have a postcode.
And you never rebut it. You've never rebutted it.
Yeah, totally. And these sorts of areas are what causes issues. The promissory estoppel, for example, how it works, what it does is it relates to the contract. Now, we us in this room know that we haven't signed a legitimate contract with them. They don't have a legitimate contract. They just believe they have. Now, what happens with a contract is both parties have obligations. And your contract, you read the terms and conditions and agree to those terms and conditions and then pay up. And they serve you, or whatever it is. What promissory estoppel does is if one party isn't doing what they're supposed to do on their contract, it stops them from any action whatsoever until they specifically perform the part of the contract that they're in breach of. That's the concept.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I looked into it in a manner that all the explanations on site are more to protect companies and large corporations with contracts, but the premise is open to us, the same as a normal estoppel. But what it does is, say you've paid with a promissory note or an A for V or something like that, and they've not accepted it, which they should have. Their articles of association to conduct commerce around the planet clearly state, calm down, Webby, we're going to talk about bills of exchange, clearly state...
Don't know what you're talking about, Alan. Never heard of it.
State that they must accept bills of exchange.
Yeah, just hang on. Andy, if you're going to speak, put your mic on.
Oh, sorry, I keep muting. 33 minutes, bang on. So whoever's got 33 minutes in the sweepstake for tonight, you're the winner. You win...
it's me!
You win a signed photograph of the picture of the boil that Jason had on his arse at the weekend.
Oh, pucker. Yeah, so that's what it
You
basically...
can't use the word pucker when you talk about an arse. That's happening.
Actually, Aidy, apparently the skin around your arse is the same as the skin on your lips, so it is potentially a pucker.
There you go.
You know,
hang on. No, I've got to get this out because this has come up now.
Oh,
I have to go for injections round my eye, right? And the guy says, I'm going to inject your sphincter muscle. And I went, I've come about my fucking eye, not my heart. And apparently a sphincter muscle means circular.
Mm.
Right.
But he didn't have to because
So you've had to stipulate that it was your ass sphincter. Well, thanks for clearing that one up.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting your promissory estoppel with Jason's arsehole, but carry on, please, Alan.
Yeah, so basically, their articles of association state clearly that they must, to be engaged in commerce, be in the Bills of Exchange Act. So what happens when they send you back a letter saying, we don't accept your A for V or we don't accept your promissory note, they are then in breach of contract and breach of their articles of association, and you can file a promissory estoppel which prevents them moving anywhere further forward on any, it puts a stop on everything until they specifically perform to their articles of association and accept your promissory note, or A for V, which negates everything thereafter, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're suggesting is get au fait with the promissory estoppel, do your little bit of research on it, look at their articles, whoever it is you're dealing with, their articles of association. I guarantee, to be in commerce, they must accept these things. And the moment you have in your hand a letter from them saying they do not accept it, they are then in breach of contract, and send them a promissory estoppel along with breach of contract and requiring specific performance. You can then, if you wish, file it in the court. And then they'll get a court letter stating the same. They will then have to specifically perform and accept, which then negates everything thereafter, or not.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, they can't do anything thereafter anyway.
Yeah.
They can't apply to a court for anything because they're stopped until they've specifically performed. That's the concept behind promissory estoppel. Whereas you can't really, you can write the letter, the 3-letter process, and go for an estoppel. It won't stop them going for a locksmith.
Yeah.
It won't stop them doing that. But you file a promissory estoppel for breach of contract, forgery, fraud, they're then pretty much buggered.
So who did you first do this with?
I've not had to yet. I've done an estoppel, done several estoppels. This was something I come up with and looked through in the last 8 weeks. So I've not had the opportunity to use it yet. It's exactly the same as an estoppel, only it's a promissory estoppel, and it asks for specific performance. So anyone that's done an estoppel knows how to do one. It's just the wording's slightly different on a couple of bits. That's all. But I think it has more power because they ignore your paperwork if you send it to a PO box or something like that, and then go and get your locksmith. But there's no reason that I was also told, though I haven't done it because I haven't required to, that you can actually fill out a form at court to prevent them going for a warrant of entry on your property as well.
Court never told me that one, Alan.
That was at magistrates when they tried about 9 months ago to have a go at mine. So I went in with all the bump to the magistrates court, and they said, no, we just stamp it. We don't even know the names really that's on it. You stamp 15, 20 of them and let them get on with it.
There you go. But there's the admittance of blatant fucking fraud right there. No participation in bills of exchange or anything. There's the fucking fraud right there, right in front of you.
Yeah. So if you just file in a court that you've paid them, with your evidence that you've paid them, with a promissory estoppel that you've sent them, the court can't turn around and say, well, with their letter back saying they won't accept it, and you say, look, they're in breach of contract. They won't accept payment. It's against their articles of association. They're committing fraud.
The only place they can take that, if they were actually had a claim, the only place they can take that is Chancery. And then you've got it right there and then, because they're going to have to bring people in who understand the bills of exchange, not these fucking dickhead magistrates who've just got a bit of money behind them and not legally trained and just play fucking golf all the time. You know, these magistrates, when I questioned the magistrates, it looked like the 2 magistrates that were in my last court case with over the gas, they looked like the 2 old fellas out off the Muppet Show sat in the balcony. That's what they look like, and that's what they act like. That's them. They
do about 6 days training. I
think you're giving them far too much credit there, because these 2 fellas didn't need any training. I just said, excuse me, I said, do you understand the Bills of Exchange Act, negotiable instruments, and how the mechanism works? No, because we don't have to. So I said to the legal clerk, do you understand the Bills of Exchange, negotiable instruments, how it works? I'm not here to answer your questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that as a no then. How dare you presume that I know or do not know these? I said, do you know? I'm not here to answer your questions. Then I was just dead harsh with her. Then I just said, well, look, love, you're a joke. You're a waste of time. I'm packing my stuff up. I'm going. Do what you need to do. I'll take it a different way from here.
Yeah, yeah.
Last time I went to Magistrates Court, I got crucifixion. Just couldn't find a fucking big enough cross.
Now the subrogation one that I was going to cover, which was
Hang on, Alan. Before you
Hang on, he's not got to his punchline. He might not got to his punchline yet. Give him a minute.
No, I'm done with the punchline. Although it was, yeah. It was funny when me and Jason stood in court, and he asked the clerk for her details because she just committed perjury, and she turned round, dismissed the magistrates, and followed them out. That was really funny, and we were stood there shouting, "This is a load of bollocks."
Yeah, my court clerk refused to give me her name and said, because I said, well, I'm taking this forward as a claim, as a prosecution. Well, I'm not giving you my details, she said. So I said to the magistrates, can I have your details? And they said, oh, no, you don't need to give your details to him. And by the way, if there's any prosecution, it'll be the ministry that gets taken to court. I went, no. I said, you're meant to be fucking legally trained. You're giving him shit advice now.
So, Alan, just before we go on to the next bit,
yeah.
You said you'd not use you'd not needed to use the promissory estoppel.
I haven't had the chance yet because I only got the research done in the last 8 weeks.
Okay, so with your own sort of, or let's not make it specifically about you, but what have you found successful in the cases that you've dealt with so far?
The subrogation bit, the letters to court, I found that nobody's required to go to court with the letters I'm putting out. The requests that I put on the letters, the court has actually been back in touch saying we will forward that information over the next few days if we can. They haven't met the time scale and it's never gone anywhere. Some quite serious stuff as well for some folk. And that's been really good. So
Just for people who have never heard of subrogation before, Alan, expand on it. What do you mean by subrogation? What is the court obliged to do if you bring up you're entitled to subrogation?
Right. The easiest way to explain it is about car insurance, because everyone kind of understands car insurance. Now, you've got your car insurance, and someone rear-ends you, or you rear-end someone else. You exchange details, insurance details. You phone your insurance company. They say, yep, go and get your car fixed, whether it's your fault or their fault. If you're fully calm, it's all done and dusted. Now, the two insurance companies, if they wanted, they don't usually, but that's irrespective, can then negotiate with each other using the rights of the two parties that they've insured. They are subrogated. They then step in your shoes when you've had your accident and take your rights, subrogated, and then fight and they are not, they don't have any liability for that because the liability sticks with you, but they can then claim and get their money back or whatever wherewith. So what subrogation means is you're stepping into the shoes of another party to administer what's required to be administered. Do you get me?
Right. Yeah.
Is that reasonably clear? So when you go to court, for example, you've got your straw man, your birth certificate. It's a different entity, and you're the living man. You're not the surety. The surety is the birth certificate. So when you require subrogation, you require it for a couple of reasons. One, the opposing counsel are a fiction. They can only deal with a fiction. They are not level for the scales of justice to deal with a man or a woman. Therefore, they con you into being the birth certificate and trustee and then deal with you, steamroll you. When you ask for subrogation, so that the parties to the action are then equal, you step into the shoes of the birth certificate, not as surety, but as agent. You then can either instruct a trustee for the straw man or the birth certificate, You require them to certificate it. You require them to acknowledge that you're entitled to it and sign that. The case cannot move forward until it's been answered. Even when they first ask for your name, you say, well, I'm here about that matter. I require subrogation so I can attend to this matter correctly and with honour immediately. And it'll take moments to deal with. And we can all be out here. I require the opposing counsel to certificate subrogation. They have to do it to become even or have standing in court.
Interesting.
So once you've done that, you can appoint a trustee and tell them to administer it. What a lot of people are doing, or not a lot, a few have done or tried to do, ask for the opposing counsel, because when you get subrogation, they are then supposed to hand you the whole file to you, because then you become the creditor as opposed to the debtor. Every bond that's been written in your name to enter court, including the charge, is then handed to you. That is an instrument. Every one of those is a monetary instrument or a credit instrument bond. And they are payable that day. Now, the clerk will have one in that bundle. Judge will have one in the bundle. Probably the solicitor that's
The prosecution.
the client, and they all have to have it in case they harm. In case they cause harm. That's what the bonds are for. Now, they all have your name on it. One of those bonds will settle whatever's come in. The actual charge bond will settle the bill.
Yeah.
You are then actually entitled to have the others cashed there and then.
Wow.
Now, those bonds are entitled, that's what they're being paid on. They're not being paid on the 700 quid that you owe. All these bonds might be for £5,000 each or whatever, and there might be 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
That's how the money's coming out. And the trust legitimately pays them when they win. That's...
So from like you've just been talking about 700 quid, they're taking there's not only just stealing your equity for the 700 quid, they're giving you costs, but they're cashing the other bonds in possibly as well.
Oh, definitely.
So you're talking possibly the best part of 20 grand per
40 grand, whatever. Yeah. The stuffing of you isn't for the financial bit. That's so that they can say, we have a legitimate reason to cash these bonds.
Yes.
That's what it's about. It's not about your fine or what you owe or this, that and the other, because that instrument's already there to be paid.
And you're giving consent and authority to these people either through actions that you don't understand what you're doing, or if you've got a solicitor who's going to instruct you to be able to allow them to do that,
To represent,
or we're not acting properly, we're not acting as we should.
you've not learned how to do your paper. You've not learned how to administer correctly, and that's all it is. And I've found with the letters I've done to pre-court dates, requiring subrogation, requiring what type of law they're going to be administering, requiring the affidavit of service, requiring this, that, and the other, it goes away. It just vanishes because they know as soon as they've got subrogation, none of the bonds are payable because they're handed over to you. So there's no fiscal reason why they should have you there. You've given them an out. It's quiet, peaceful.
Yeah.
You've not taken up any of their time, apart from they open the envelope and say, this one's going nowhere for us, we're not going to earn a penny, and throw it away.
Yeah.
Move on to the next.
Yeah.
That's predominantly how I've felt things have worked.
Well, I think...
So
what has that worked with, Alan, so far?
It's worked with driving without a license, insurance, MOT, and road tax. It's worked with rental arrears. It's worked with, I'm trying to think what else. Your court.
Yeah, my court paperwork, paid off a payment.
There's, I'd say there's about 6 that it's worked with without any comeback whatsoever. Just
what period of time?
only once did we get a letter back from the court saying, we'll be in touch with the information you require.
If the information had been recorded.
Yeah, and indeed if they could reply to it. And that was it, not another peep.
What kind of timescale are you talking here?
Sorry?
What type of timescale?
That we sent the letter on, say, a Friday. By the following Friday, he had mail back from the court saying, because we gave them 10 days, and they said, we'll be in touch in the next few days with the information you require, if we've got it on record.
And how long ago was that?
In the last month. That one,
okay.
for example. He was lifted by the police a week later, and a week after the court case for a different offence, and they didn't even charge him for that either. So it's had an effect. And in fact, the person with a lot of weed in the boot, who collected his car, was stopped at the same time while the car was still in another car was still in pound. Neither of them charged. The police have actually now recognised that they're not going to get anywhere with them.
Wow.
They actually said to him, well, what's your name? And he says, and they just walked on. That's quite an eye-opener, because it's not tried and tested very well, but it's obviously worked this last couple of months. And I thought, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's an easy way of dealing with things, do it.
There's one thing I learned a long time ago, that if this stuff isn't simple, you're not correct with it. It's got to be simple for it to be correct. If you're getting it complicated, you're playing their game.
Yeah.
And they're better at their game than you are. I don't care what people think. If you start to use subsection A, appendix B, you're playing their game. There's no need to play their game. Pull yourself out of it.
For every one that you find that's for you, they'll find one that's against.
Exactly. But again, you're playing the game of commerce. You're playing Monopoly. Why would you want to play Monopoly if you want to play Tiddlywinks? You don't bother with the Monopoly game. I want to play Tiddlywinks. I'm not interested in your game. Am I liable for this? Should I be in your court? Should I be negotiating business with you? No, I shouldn't.
Have you got what you require? Because I don't believe you have. It's that simple.
And it takes people to go in, because, I mean, I've never... we've had quite a few chats. I know we've not known each other that long, but I thank you for what you said about the videos and the work that I'd done. But like I said, I was learning as I went, and people were crying at me to prove this, prove it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you yourself know there is no proof until you do it, and you see how these people act. You see what these people come up with. You can't give them proof, because if I could give proof, that means it's done, and then everybody could just go and do it.
Exactly.
And it needs more people to do that.
90% of it is trial and error, and you stumble across what works. You get in touch with folk that have done the odd bit, and you seem to think, or that they seem to have had things work. Because let's face it, you're not going to get proof that you've won. You're never going to get proof that you've won.
Not until we've stopped this system. Not until we've stopped it. I mean, you've got the barristers who are going on strike because they think that the court system's collapsing. And they're actually saying that they want more money and shit like that. Well, they want more money because they're being challenged. These people are actually having to have to work for a living instead, because people are coming up with really good fucking arguments. And the fact is, Alan, with that joint gyro, I mean, when you mentioned the bank gyro, was it a bank gyro or was it a joint gyro credit check that you received with Walter?
Santander.
Transcash.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a joint gyro credit check. That is drawn on a third party. It's not you and it's not them. It's paid to them, but they cannot settle your account. You must settle it, and you've got to set that debt off with your endorsement. That is it. That is done. That is your remedy. And if you use a remedy, and you, as you're talking now, you're getting it. If you get that registered in a court, but separate, because I feel that these hearings, they're calling them hearings, they're not being heard properly in a court. This room's being hired, just like the family courts, just like the council tax courts. It's not a place of law. You're not getting it. And if you become the claimant, only then can you get that. Because when I said, can I have an order that the bill is paid? And he said, no, because there's nobody here to argue with it. Now, I know for a fact, if they'd have brought the claim and I hadn't turned up, they would have got judgment. So I said, well, how come they would have got that? I said, is it because that they're the claimant? And he said, yes. I said, so you're saying the remedy is to become claimant? And he just nodded. Yeah. So the burden of proof, again, is on every man and woman to take this forward. And I think that we could get a group action together and take this forward. And it doesn't matter who takes it forward, because if the first one gets knocked down, then somebody else can step up. It's not a class action, whereas if you've got 100 people, one will take it forward, and if they lose, everybody loses. It's a group action where you all come with all different things, and you put the bundle in, and you've covered and rebutted everything, so it's all nice in a neat package. There you go. What you're going to do.
There's another one, Paul. We went to court to watch in the early days, and there just so happened to be a friend of Lee's in court and got done for something that he has £750 to pay. Now, he came out and myself and Lee asked the solicitor, would the court take a promissory note for that fine? He says, they wouldn't like it. They wouldn't.
I didn't ask you that.
They wouldn't like it. Now, immediately that said, right, so I haven't done my paperwork correctly. I've gone to court and I've got slapped up. I've come out and I've got a bit of paper here that says X amount on it. Write your promissory note, hand it to the court, job done. So, for folk that have gone too far down the path and not done everything right and got rid of it with a letter beforehand, there's always the option of getting slapped, getting the bill, and then paying it with a promissory note. Because I guarantee you, a court has got to accept them.
That's brilliant information there. We've got loads of comments from the chat rooms, Alan.
Cool. We go on to, yeah.
Sorry, mate. I was talking over you there. I thought you'd finished. Just wanted to butt in there because we're going to take a little music break. We've got a couple of tunes lined up. As ever, we try to do things a little differently. So the first song in the break is about the perils of using your son as alligator bait. So we'll be back in about 9 minutes after a couple of tunes. See you then.
Amos Moses was a Cajun. He lived by himself in a swamp, hunting alligators for a living. Hit them on the head with a stump.
places to find us. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, all kinds of places. I can't even keep count of the places we're on. We've got some fantastic input from the chat room tonight. And I just like to say that we had an interesting conversation while the music was playing off there. I just wondered if there was any of that you wanted to recap on for the listeners who are on the radio-only feed.
Of course I can. Feel like I'm doing all the talking here. That's good, though. Yeah.
Hey, well, hang on. That's what the fuck you're on here for.
Oh, I've been saying, oh, you bugger.
Hey, and you're not getting fucking paid either.
Oh, I've got your little present today, and it is your size.
Is it fat bastard size?
Yeah, that's the one.
What's it say?
I think it says load of wank, doesn't it? Yeah, load of wank. Yeah.
Anyhow, yeah. In court, I was saying about if you ask for subrogation and things. There's lots of other questions you can ask, like standing. Standing is everything in court. They actually have no standing. They know it. They don't want you to know it. And nothing can move forward if you've required something or objected to something and pointed it out, such as the judge. You quite happily ask him for his standing. You can ask him what type of law he wishes to administer. Because Paul's actually commented on the switch from this one to that one, equity to admiralty to canon to this, that, and the other. You can't actually require that to be able to act correctly and honourably. I require to know when we move on to equity or canon and things like this. I require to know
the jurisdiction. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to know in advance so that I can prepare correctly for that situation. Once that's brought up, it shows a level of knowledge, and they don't want that. They will wipe clean. They will. They want an easy out. The chances are you've got a 50-50 or a 40-60 chance of getting out there clean and whatever if you're going in there arguing about the name or arguing about jurisdiction or this, that, and the other. You don't need to ask about these things. You just need to ask the things that they are required to give you, which is their standing. You can ask him if he's there in an administrative capacity, because that's fine. If that's the type of court it is, he needs to let you know, and you can prepare for that scenario and answer correctly. You're not opposed to it in the way you ask. You just need to know that you're dealing with it in that manner.
Yeah.
If it's the case, it's a trust proceeding. I need subrogation so I can act on behalf of the trust and do what the trust should have done to remedy the situation.
Yeah.
Can opposing counsel please give me a certificate of subrogation, and then we can get this matter wiped up quick and easy.
That makes sense to me, that, Paul. I'm just... Robert Harper has posted on Facebook Live that he had a question for me that can I list any legislation on the gyro or what department in the Treasury deals with gyro payments. As far as the way I understand it is I never touched the Treasury. I do know people who contacted the Treasury who have told them that they've admitted that the trust exists, but they have nothing to do with it, and that man was directed to the Section 151 officer at the local council, who we know are paid a certain amount of money every year for you to be able to set off your debts. These funds aren't being claimed by us, so they're going into an abandoned funds account, just a bit like lost property. And some people can then make a claim on those funds after a certain period of time, whatever that time scale is. The joint gyro credits, what I believe happens is that the payment is there authorised to actually zero the account. This is only bookkeeping. It's not about a transfer of funds, essentially. It's about zeroing the account, and you've got to authorise that. So basically, the Santander, the commercial bank, is where British Gas, E.ON, Scottish Power, they all have their commercial accounts. There's a certain amount of funding paid into there. From that funding, they have to collect revenue. The revenue is the commercial agreements. So the commercial agreements then get offset to the commercial agreements, so they know how much has gone, how much they've recouped. But the factor is that there's still payments outstanding for the non-commercial agreements. Those non-commercial agreements aren't claimed, and they aren't used. They aren't transferred, they aren't endorsed, so no accounts are getting zeroed. So by transferring it by your endorsement, what that does is it says, well, we're using that fund, this is a non-commercial agreement, and the Treasury would get the receipt. That's how I think it works. Again, going back to the other way of doing it, where people are trying to pay it, that debt, because it's the same as what happens with the abandoned funds. That money is not being claimed, the funds aren't being used by the endorsement, so then those funds sit there. Well, if they're not used, the Treasury will take them back and put them back into the trust, because Mr. Paul Webster doesn't want to use them, or Mr. Paul Webster's still dead, he's still lost at sea, nobody's bothering with it. But we'll accept some promissory notes for a commercial agreement, but the trouble is, it's debt paying debt, so I just make the debt worse. All these hard-working people, and I know so many of them, are working 2, 3, 4 jobs to compete with themselves 10 years ago, where they only worked 1 job. But the trouble is, these people don't realise that every time they attempt to pay a bill with their money, they're making the national debt worse.
Yeah. Coupled with that, cryptocurrencies now. People say, "Oh, Bitcoin and all that doesn't work." That's cryptocurrency. But also this card, when you swipe your card over one of them things in the shop, and it goes beep beep if it's under 30 quid and pays automatic. That's cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So it is. It's cryptocurrency. It's got nothing to do with anything apart from a few numbers sorting out a few numbers at the other end.
Exactly.
There's no exchange whatsoever.
See, I the contactless stuff, I sent my card back and said I don't wish to have contactless. So my card doesn't have contactless. And people have asked me in pubs and that, when I've been paying for stuff, why do you not want contactless? Because I know people who've walked through pubs, maybe 6 pubs in the town centre, with a reading machine, just walking past handbags and people with wallets, blink, 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 blink. I think it's 40 quid a time or whatever it is now. So yeah. they're making like 400 or 500 quid walking through one pub. That's why I don't have contactless.
I've just changed my bank. And I said, I want contactless cards. And they said, well, we'll have to issue you the contactless ones. But if you want the ones that aren't contactless, we'll have to order them as a replacement. So the second I'd got the letter, I rang them up and said, right, I've got this letter, you've sent me a card, replace it because I don't want contactless. So anyway, they came, and it's a case of, right, now you need to activate your card and toddle off down to the bank, put your card in the machine and change your PIN number if you want to. So that's exactly what I did this morning. Okay? But sadly, the machine kept saying, there, your card works, but you're not going to fucking change your PIN because we're not going to let you. And I'm thinking, but I don't want my PIN to be what you've sent me. I want my PIN to... So anyway, I went into the branch, and a lady in there was really, really helpful. And she said, they don't really need to replace your card once we've... once you've opted out. They actually call it an opt-out.
Yeah.
She said, because once you've opted out, it won't work as contactless. And I went, but you can't turn the RFID chip off in that card because it's always going to be transmitting the information on that card. You might have returned the receiving end off, but you can't turn off the... I said, without you chuck it in a microwave or drill an hole through the RFID chip. And she just stood there looking at me and she went, what are you talking about? And I said, that contactless card has got an RFID chip in it. And I got out my mobile phone and I went, watch. And off the card that she said didn't need replacing because the contactless wouldn't work I downloaded a free app while I was in the bank on my phone, and I just went on top of my card, and I went, there you go, there's all my details. And she went, I can't believe you just did that. I didn't know that could actually happen.
Yeah.
And that
That's
was
a-
Halifax. That was today in the Halifax.
That's the point. That's the whole point. People who are pushing this stuff, being, so. It helps out. Look, we could get rid of money and then people wouldn't get robbed. All these great ideas, and the people who are promoting them all come from those great ideas, and they haven't got a clue how it can be used. Yeah, I know lads who have made loads of fucking money just walking through a pub. Bleep, 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 bleep. Right, let's go and get all this. It's all in their bank. It's amazing. It's amazing that people. Any new technology, there's always back doors, and people find these back doors. I know a lad, and funnily enough, I shook his hand when I met him. He was inside for stealing 12 million from Barclays through the back door because he had codes. And when they arrested him with just 50 grand in cash in a shoebox, and the rest had been distributed and put into, invested into minerals and precious metals and stuff like that. Now, when they arrested him, they said, right, you're going to go not only into segregation, but you'll be in solitary confinement until you give us your codes. And he says, we'll hold you with no visits, no phone calls, no solicitors until you give us your codes. So he turned his codes over and he got 4 years. Well, he got 8 years, reduced to 4 for being a good boy, turning them all in. They recouped just over 8 million of these funds from him. So he had 4 million to get out to. I said, they're going to watch you like fuck. He went, they can watch me all they like, they'll never get that. I shook his hand. I said, because you've just done what the banks are doing to everybody.
Yeah.
He said, well, when you've explained it, he said, I didn't know what I was doing. He says, I just thought they are doing something. They are stealing from us. He says, but what you've just told me makes perfect sense. So people understand this stuff. And do you know what? I can talk to people who've got economic degrees. They haven't got a fucking clue. Accountants. Money's not real, What? What are you fucking talking about? Money's not real. Honestly, these people are just... It's like that. There's one. There's one who got a kick in the bollocks in the teeth. He woke up with that.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you guys found that the easiest things to get rid of are credit cards and bank loans? Overdrafts.
I've done my credit card and overdraft.
So easy, aren't they? I found them the easiest lot. Payday loans are easy.
To be fair, Alan, what they did with me was, unfortunately, I don't live in credit, but they blackmarked me. They put black marks against my credit. I have no judgments. I have no anything against me. But it's just enough for a firm, if I wanted to get credit, it's enough for a firm to go, oh, hang on, no, there's something not right here. But all I should be able to do is contact the Financial Services Authority or whatever the guys they're under now, and they have
to... an Experian.
There you go. Then they should be able to zero that and give me my credit rating back because I have nothing against me.
Yeah.
But as you were saying, the thing with the credit cards, it's an extension of credit. That's your credit. The banks aren't lending you anything. They can't show you any loss. The same with
facilitating credit. That's it.
That's it. And the same with the overdraft. The beauty of the overdraft is that in your interest payments, there's an insurance policy in case you default. And it's just like the mortgages. Once you default, the insurance policy, the third party, is triggered. They get paid off in full. And you've paid for that. I was paying £30 a month interest. I paid for that. It's gone. The time limit's up for them now. It's statute barred after 6 years. That's gone now.
Last year I looked at, it was going about that everyone was looking into their TDA accounts and off their birth certificate numbers. And I actually found mine and there was a lot of pages. And I just opened a new bank account and got rid of the overdraft in the old one. And I have no overdraft facility in it, no loans, no nothing, just payments in, payments out. And it was interesting. There was £5,000 against my name that the bank had taken out on that number. I thought,
that's unbelievable.
Did you know I'm always talking about fractional reserve lending, and it basically is, if I've got £1,000, they can facilitate credit. I won't use the word lend. 10 grand.
Yeah.
Once they've got 10 grand, they can then facilitate 100 grand, and once they've got 100 grand, they can then facilitate $1 million.
Usury is charging interest on that as well.
Yeah, and it's more complicated than that, but that's a very, very simple way of looking at it.
Well, that's how it's got to be, Adi. You've got it right. You've got to deliver it simply like that, because people will lose interest otherwise.
Now here's the kicker. When I changed bank, they said, "Oh, well, you can have a 2,000 quid overdraft if you want," and I went, "Well, I'll never use it, but just in case I ever just go slightly over, whatever." Now, because I've got the facility to borrow 2 grand, they can lend or facilitate credit 20 grand on the strength of that.
Yeah, purely because you're a power of attorney straight away. As soon as you own the account, you're a power of attorney.
Yeah,
you've said yes to 2 grand, whether you use it or not. It's there.
Now, like everybody else, when we go on holiday, we like to have a bit of cash. Depending on which country you're going to, you might take cash, you might take traveller's checks, you might use credit card. Whatever's the best way of getting the best exchange rate. Now, for where I'm going,
you might take condoms, Ada?
yeah. But you tend not to exchange those. You
don't exchange anything if you've got condoms.
No, you don't exactly. But
he's not started snorting them like the youngsters today.
We'll get on to that in a bit. Go on, Ada. Carry on, mate.
Now, for where I'm going, you're better off taking cash. Yeah. So, because you get a better exchange rate over there. But you want a bit of cash so you can pay the taxi driver, and for like your first few hours there, at least you've got a bit of their currency. But like a lot of other people, I always take with me my debit card. So, if I lose all my cash, I can go to a machine and get some out in desperation. All right, it'll cost me more money, but at least, I can still carry on with my trip. And also a credit card. Now, this new credit card they've given me has got a 5 grand limit on it. Now, I'll probably never use it, but if I do, or if I don't, it doesn't matter. They can now go and lend or facilitate credit using this fractional reserve system, 50 grand to somebody else just because I've got available credit for 5 grand. It's not what you've borrowed. It's what you've got in your account. It's what you've got available. And that's why when you go to a cash machine and put your card in, it'll say, this is your balance, but this is your available.
Yeah.
You might have 100 quid in your account, but if you've got a 2 grand overdraft limit, it'll be £2,100 available. Because that's what they're going to use for fractional reserve lending to facilitate credit to somebody else to the power of 10.
Yeah. The usury is it's one of the most evil concepts that have ever been inflicted on humanity, the usury, because...
When I went into the bank 2 weeks ago to start all this changing over, and I did it just because I got fed up, and whenever I wanted to sort anything out, I was speaking to fucking Simon in Mumbai. That's what pissed me off with my last bank. It's pointless having telephone banking because the language barrier is fucking immense.
Did he not sound like a Simon in Mumbai then?
No, funnily enough, and he didn't sound anything like somebody from Bolton or Wigan. You know what I mean?
That's strange, that, because when I had to ring British Gas, I had to speak to somebody in New Delhi, and her name was Elizabeth Watmore. If her name was Elizabeth Watmore, mate, I haven't got a fucking clue what my name is, because she could barely speak English, never mind have a name like Elizabeth Watmore. And then you read things, well, they're called English names, so they're more palatable. So you feel more relatable to them. It's just bollocks. Go on, Eddie, sorry, carry on, Paul.
No, and you're absolutely right. And they've even got a crib sheet about EastEnders, so that if you start to get irate, they can ask you about EastEnders. Until I turn around and say, what the fuck's that got to do with the question I've just asked? And then they say, are you being racist? And I go, no, I'm being thick flattist. Because either you don't fucking understand or I'm not speaking English. But a lot of it is not their fault because, as we say all the time, in English, we've got, 1,000 different words for one thing.
Yeah.
And it's the only language like it, which is why it's easy for the legal system to bastardize it to use for legalese so that we think we're saying one thing, but we're not.
Yeah. Exactly. Spot on, mate.
But nevertheless, the girl who originally switched me account to, was she now knows all about fractional reserve lending and how the banking system works. And the woman that I saw today about my card now knows all about RFID chips.
Brilliant, Aid. We've got a question here in the chat room from, it looks like a new face in the chat room, Chatter Boom. And they're asking, I don't know who wants to take this one, but I know Alan will probably quite enjoy it. How do you deal with a parking charge notice?
They're good fun.
You've had some fun with that this week, haven't you?
Well, I played with my third clamp in the last year this week.
Andy, does it say whether it was on private land or whether it was on the street or whether it was council or anything like that?
No, it doesn't say. So if you could make the differentiation, please, it would be useful.
Parking notices, I've dealt with quite a few of them, one for my dad, and I just directly return to sender them. The stamp that we showed earlier, that one, that's how I deal with any of those. Clamps, they're great fun. They're really good fun. A lot of people fear them. I cut 2 off last year, binned them. Just had letters through, return to sender as soon as I got them, and they went away. This last one I got clamped after I come back from London last week, Tuesday last week, cut it off, threw it away, no problem. Yesterday morning at 9:05, I'm in my PJs, my pajamas, and there's a hoist above my car. so I dived out in my pajamas, got into the car because there's no clamp on it, obviously. And started up and started juggling away. Their mouths dropped. And I said, you don't have control of goods here. There's no clamp on it, so you can't be taking it anyway. And I said, did you read my wee notice in the window? Which he obviously hadn't. And he says, no, I didn't read that. I said, well, it's a legal notice, so you maybe should have. And he says, but you need road tax. I said, I know exactly who needs road tax and who doesn't. And yeah, this one doesn't. Drove round him and drove off, not a problem. Came back, and but I've not dealt with the car issue quite the way I should have as yet. That's in process over the last day or two. I should have that resolved by the middle of next week, but I can't really go into that at the minute. But as long if you get rid of the clamp or you return to sender the parking ticket, don't engage with them in any way, shape, or form. Stick it into an envelope with the address, return to sender on it, and write their address on the back of it, fire it in the letterbox, and forget it. If you've opened any dialogue whatsoever, you've accepted as an issue. That's what I've found with parking.
Yeah, they'll presume that.
Yeah, they presume as soon as you've opened it, you've assumed that there's an issue, and that's correct. And you've now given jointed by merely contacting. Then you've got the devil's job of writing cease and desist and this, that, and the other, and I don't owe that. And
well,
don't
you have
go
to
down that route. It's too
yeah,
much.
you have to do it. Yeah, you have to do it to fruition, don't you? If you're gonna go start that, you're gonna have to complete
engage
it.
with them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason, you've got a question for Alan, and also a little PCN story. So whichever you want to do first, brother.
Shoot.
Well, it's an interesting story as far as I'm concerned. Mate, my dad's bought a new van last year, 17 plate van. He's bought a new van, yada yada yada. Anyway, he got a PCN notice for somewhere. I think it were outside a company or it was in an area, but there was supposedly parking restrictions. But it were private land. It were a private company. It was a private company that were making this claim. And he wrote to him and he rung me up and he said, "What shall I do?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what you do. just completely ignore it, right? Completely ignore it. Now, so that's what he did. He just took, as I just said, just took it in bin, like what Alan was just saying. And I suppose you answered my question on that one. But here's the interesting thing, and I can get because I got the second letter today, but I got a letter here from the company, the parking charge company. I think well, I don't know what they are. I can't remember. I've got it on. I've got the second letter that came today downstairs, right? But it was addressed to my dad at my address. And on the letter it said, we've done some investigations and we believe this is your actual address. So here you go. Here's a bill for this money. So again, I rang my dad up and I said, what the... I said, Dad, I said, you're not going to believe this. They've actually traced me. My dad's Stephen Holmes. I'm Jason Stephen Holmes. Okay, it's just incredible that they've been able to match us together in some point. You know, there's some sort of data that links us together. Perhaps because I'm on his insurance,
DVLA, Jason.
Insurance and all that, and so. What they've done is they've done some sort of search and come up with my address and written to my dad at my address. Anyway, I got the second one today. I got a second one saying notice of intended legal action. And again, it's another one that's just going to end up in bin. But I just thought that were really quite interesting how not only now are they going, you know, because if I was not in the mindset that I've got at the moment, I might be. If I was just a normal dude, I might just pay it. I might just think,
that's what we expect. That's what we expect.
He's still got all his marbles, but I might think, you know, he's done something, and he's not. So I'll pay it for him just so that I don't think that he's going to be upset by it. Whereas this is a new tactic, as far as I'm concerned, where they're targeting people. Family members of people that they believe owe them some money, or they don't even believe they owe them some money. They're just trying to scam people out of money, aren't they? So that's an interesting new tactic. I don't know if you've come across that before, Alan.
Well, what I've noticed is I used to be in double glazing many years ago, and we used to have canvas rooms, and I was a sales manager and so forth, and we'd have 10 women and blokes on the phone all night for 3 or 4 hours a night, just ringing numbers. Now, if you think that's pretty much, that's eased off a bit now. I don't think companies I don't get any calls from double glazing and kitchens and stuff anymore, but I don't know whether you guys do. But what I find interesting is there was a whole field of skilled people for making phone calls. Now, notices, parking notices, non-road tax. There's companies out there now that what they do for a living is go and find out who hasn't got these things or who's gone against a parking, this, that, and the other. And their job is just to try and get 4 or 5 hits during their 3 or 4 hour session at the call centre. And whatever type of hit it is they get, likes of your dad's name and your name, that's a possible hit. Right, send another letter out. That's all that is. And it's, as you say, if there's people out there that'll just pay it. And what they work on is, what we used to work on in double glazing was, if we made 50 appointments, 10 of them would sell. But we worked out that for every 5 appointments, we get a sale. So all we're after is the amount of appointments. We worked out how much average profit sale was. So then all we had to do was to generate an income stream, was to work out how many appointments we needed to make 20 grand a week. And that was it. It was a pure mathematical decision.
It's ratios, isn't it? You ask enough people the same question, you're bound to get some yeses. I used to have a mate who used to base the ratio on, if he asked every woman in a nightclub would they go home and have sex with him, one woman would say yes. And he didn't have high standards, so it always worked for him. And he based it on that. He said, all you were doing, don't get me wrong, he had drinks thrown over him, he had slaps, he had boyfriends stepping in, all that kind of stuff. But he stuck to his word and asked virtually every girl, and one would always say yes.
One said yeah.
Especially if it got to 10-2.
But you don't know whether it's the first one or the 100th that you've got to ask.
No, you don't. You just got to keep asking.
Yeah,
and it's the same with sales. It's exactly the same with sales. It's the same mentality. It's the same pitch.
Yeah, she might have sat there and thought, you know what, if I get asked 3 times tonight, I'm going with the third one.
Yeah.
You just don't know, do you?
And it always pissed me off because a woman
not if I were first, they weren't going with third one.
But if you started talking the conversation without your boil on your ass, mate.
So what was your plan then, Jason? You knew you'd have to ask one, but if that didn't work, you might have to ask 2.
Listen, mate, I was DJ, so I could take my pick. Okay, Aidy knows that. Everybody.
I've actually been stood.
You know, we were like, you know, he got. Go on, Ada.
I've actually been stood DJing and not next to Jason. I've got to say at this point, this was in Tiffany's. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. This was in Tiffany's, which will give you an idea of how long ago it was. And I went to the loo and I came back and my mate stood there with a big smile on his face. So I sort of get back in the DJ booth and I carry on working. And I wonder why he stood there shaking. And I look down and there's a girl underneath the DJ console who's got his old man out. And he's actually stood.
What's he doing there?
Yeah, he stood in a club with 1,000 people working all the lights. He was the lighting job. He's working all the lights. And I'm thinking, I'm going to fucking have to learn to work lights here.
me and my mate were in Germany back when I was in the army. And we went to a big nightclub and I got out with this good-looking lass and I could speak German quite well.
Yeah.
And she spoke quite good English. And the following week we went to the same nightclub. It was about 50 mile away. And my mate was with me. He was a good-looking lad, but he didn't speak much German at all. And she was bringing her twin sister. It was quite funny. So the twin sister comes, and all she could speak was German. And he couldn't speak any English. And the two of the girls got together and they said, do you think we should swap? It was pucker, mate. The things that happen in life, eh? Good fun.
Anyway, let's just get back to Jason's parking charge. Was that from private land or... Jason?
I think he's gone, mate.
Oh, was he?
He's vacated the DJ stand.
Yeah.
Has he?
Parking charges. Parking is so easy. You just ignore the buggers. Send it back to them. There's no contract there. They can't fine you without going to court. And if it goes that far, watch Bill Webster, Tricks of the Bill Turner, Tricks of the Trade. It's about 18 minutes long, and it will explain how to compose your letter and the sorts of things to put in the notice. It's perfectly clear. Joe Blogs can read it, can watch it, and understand it so easy, and follow that, and you will get better and better and better at it.
Well, I'd just like to add to that. Paul Cotty, I'm not sure if somebody told me he'd stopped doing his own radio show, but he's done some amazing work over there in Ireland, and he says sometimes I like to go in and offer them money, but he said I always walk out without paying because I've seen Paul's video and he goes in, he says, yeah, I've come to pay this. Yeah, okay. He said, but before I can pay it, I need to see your operator's license. And they're like, what? And he said, well, I can't give you any money unless all businesses need an operating license. Unless before I see that, I can't pay you any. And there's some quite funny videos online of Paul doing that.
I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, that sounds really good fun.
Can we just ask him that question about his parking charge? Was it on? Was it private land that, Jason, or was it on the street, or where was it?
It must have been private land because it was the shit that's come through today is from Marston's.
Dirty bastards.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
I said to my I rung my father up first time when it came, and he said, well, I just chucked it away like you told me to. I said, yeah, and that's what they're doing, they're fishing. And somebody's made a point on Facebook Live that's all they were doing, were just fishing for an address to be able to send some county court papers, or for just somebody just to acknowledge them. Whereas if you ignore them,
I mean, I've had quite a bit of success with it. You know, anybody who says, "Oh, you owe us this," because all they're really doing is sending you an invoice. That's what they're doing. I've had quite a bit of success with I don't even write them a letter. I just get their letter. I do not recognise you. Please provide a copy of any contract you claim exists between us. If I haven't heard back from you within 10 days, I consider the matter closed.
Yeah.
has anybody thought of sending a notice of implied removal of implied rights of access to the post office? I wonder how that would work. Who gets anything good through post? Anybody get through anything good through post? It's always somebody saying, you owe me this fucking money, you owe us that, gears this, or gears that, or I'm waiting for the one where the Oxfam advert comes on TV and it's fucking gets this picture of this bloke in a suit and it says, this is Dave. Dave's not been laid in 2 days.
TV licensing.
You fucking send your £3 a
Jason.
month, but maybe you have to go prostitute. It's fucking ridiculous. Sorry, Webber.
TV licensing. I've had loads of letters from them, and they're always saying they're going to come and visit me. They're lovely letters. Are you going to be in on such a day? And go through my diary. Yeah, I'm a rest day. I'll be in all day. I was under from January 2017 to February 2018. I've been under 6 full investigations by TV licensing. I've never seen anybody yet. Well, they were full investigations.
Guys, I was
TV
thinking about...
licensing, just write to them. This address, I didn't even put my name on it. This address does not require a TV license.
Boom,
And
that's
they
it.
just write back and go, okay.
That's it, boom.
I wanted to bring something else up as well, and I'm sorry, Alan, I'm intruding, but I did.
Oh, brilliant! You get stuck in.
But Adi, I thought you'd be interested in this. I noticed this today, and I thought this is really sneaky. But you know, one of the agencies that I used to work for, Event UK.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still a friend with the woman who does all the admin, even though I haven't worked for them for quite a long time. I haven't done any gigs for them at all for quite a long time, but I'm still friends with her, and she keeps posting things on Facebook. Now, she posted this today. This, you are going to love this, Ada. Right? You've worked through agencies, haven't you? And you've send invoices in, you know, how it works. Right, listen to this.
25%, I'd have appreciated more, but, you know.
Yeah, well, whatever. Listen to this, right? This is from Denise Cowlard. Fucking Cowlard. I don't know. I thought it were Coward for years and years, but it's actually Cowlard. And it's only tonight that I realised that it's actually Cowlard and not Coward. I've been calling him Coward for since about 2009 when I first fucking worked for him. But anyway.
It's not like you get somebody's name wrong, pal.
She's posted this. And just listen to this, Ada, please. Right? So she deals with all the admin, so all the DJs, all the performers, all the bands, everybody that they deal with sends their invoices in, and she deals with them. Now listen to this post on Facebook that she just put, and this is an example of the noose being tied around people's fucking necks. Right? From next month, in line, intermediaries legislation 2015. And our clients' instructions will require unique taxpayer references and national insurance numbers on invoices in order for us to process them. Details on how to obtain your unique taxpayer reference are in the link below. So now, in order to get paid, this is what they do. They get all these. You know, I used to go when you were gigging back in the day, and you'd make a deal with the landlord or whatever, or the person that would deal. This is what they've done. They've got all these companies into these different places, and now they're getting them to enforce legislation. But bear in mind, This legislation is from 2015. So what this is, this particular thing is being embedded into some legislation to be triggered that's been passed through Parliament that nobody probably noticed in 2015 in order for it to be triggered in 2018. And it's another way that they're putting, because they do want to make being paid cash in hand illegal. It's, that's what they want to do. And they said that they want to get rid of cash. I don't actually believe that. I think that the cash will end up being minimal, but I don't think they want to get rid of it altogether. But I think that what they're doing is they're making every single situation. This agencies probably don't want to do this, but they've got to do it. Otherwise, they're not compliant.
What used to happen was, you'd get paid in cash. You'd sign the chitty that the landlord had in his little receipt book, so he'd got something to show why his till was down, whether he was a manager or whether he was actually the landlord and owned it. Then it got to the stage where they wanted an invoice. And that was at the point where all DJs and bands had an address that didn't exist. And what happened then was the taxman started going back to the people that had paid out the money, the landlord of the pub, the club owner, whatever, and said, we can't claim the tax from that earnings, so you're liable for it. So then the landlords and everything went to their accountants, and the accountant said, actually, no, you're not. And that's why the legislation came in 2015 to cover that. And it's to make sure that they get your national insurance number and your unique number for the taxman. And that's basically why they've done it.
Yeah. I'd done some thinking about a month ago. I got my birth extract last year, and
Sorry, you got your birth extract?
Yeah.
Certificate of live birth.
No. It just says certificate of birth, but they call it the extract. It's the short certificate. Now, this is the certificate that they use, that social services use, and I was the first one to ask for the certificate in Peterborough since that woman had been working there, and she'd been there for over 18 years. She says it's of no use to you whatsoever because it doesn't prove anything, or no one else, banks and all that won't use it. They use your proper birth certificate. I said, well, I know exactly what it's about, why I want it, and I got one. And when I got it, it was really interesting in what it didn't have on it, not what it had on it. And we live in a society of commerce and trust and contracts.
Do we?
In all contracts, you've got interested parties. Now, on your full birth certificate, your parents' names are on it. So they're interested parties. So surely they'd be called to any hearing re the children, your children, so to speak. Now, on the birth extract, however, you're the only one on it. The kid is the only one on it, on the birth extract. There's no family members' names on it whatsoever. And that's what they use for that. But that aside, it actually says on it that I am in the custody of the Registrar General. Now, when you're in custody, it's my belief that they are then trustee for everything that you do. They make all the decisions for you. Well, if I'm in the custody of the Registrar General, or that name is, then he's obviously supposed to administer all my bills, isn't he? So I thought, wouldn't it be nice if 4,000 or 5,000 bills arrived on his mat from various people around the country, saying, well, cheers, they've sent me this, but you're the trustee, can you sort this out, please? And I'm deal with it. It was maybe a funny thought, but it might have some merit. Worth a look at, I suppose. What do you think?
I thought you were going to tell us a really interesting story where you'd been down that road and you got some results. Alan, one thing that cropped up on something that I watched on YouTube the other week was that people are starting to get their live birth record.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what you knew about that and what it can actually do for us.
With what I've looked into, you don't necessarily need it. You can get a copy of it. It's awkward. It's through your hospital. My brother attempted to do it, and if he'd have followed it through, he would have got it. But we worked out that it wasn't necessary for what we were doing. I think I'll touch on it because it's the area that we're working on at the minute, probate and so forth. These areas will work on just your full certificate. So you don't need to be too concerned about having a live birth. You don't need to worry too much about getting notaries because the likes of land registry and places like that, when you go in with an appointment to take in stuff, they are the notary public to say that there's no gun to your head when you're handing it in. So that's, in effect, that's notarized when you go in there. So as far as the full certificate's fine for proving that you're alive if you go into the right forum with it. Short certificate's interesting because it's only your name that's on it. And it has a different number, which was quite interesting. And I believe that your NHS number, your national insurance number, your short certificate number, your full birth certificate number, these are all different accounts for you. Same with when I said there that the bank, when you open a bank account, they take out a lump that's obviously for you. That number will have money that's for you. Money. Every time you sign something with a number on it, the chances are there's a bond somewhere flying about in a bundle of them being sold off for some kind of profit or investment. You can rest assured it is in derivatives or whatever it is that will be going out there for that. If it's got a number on it and a signature on it, it's an instrument. You can be.
Oh, so just one that's just sprung back into my head. Earlier on, we were talking about insurance policies against loans and credit cards and things. It's called an indemnity, and to indemnify literally means to make good.
Yeah.
So if somebody is claimed on an indemnity against a debt in your name, that debt has been made good.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. From all my readings, or for everything that I've looked into, it's finding your way through to get these things settled off or set off is your awkward bit. Your awkward bit is finding a trustee. Now, the areas that we're going into at the minute through probate and things are about getting a full-time trustee. Once you've got that, job's a good one.
I think I'm going to nominate Andy as my trustee.
Yeah.
Oh, not sure about that, Aid.
Pay him in weed and beer.
Done. It's been a brilliant chat tonight, guys, and believe it or not, we're just approaching the 2-hour mark. So if you'd like 5 or 10 minutes just to wrap up, Alan, anything that we've not covered that you'd like to cover, I'm sure we're going to be getting you back on again sometime in the not too distant future, because you've been a great guest. It's been a brilliant chat. We've had a really reactive chat room. We've got people listening all over the world. So over to you, Alan.
I'd just like to say thanks for everyone listening. My first ever podcast, Skype or whatever.
Oh, you were shit. You were shit.
Great to meet you guys. I just think that if folk just take that chance, have a go with simple things. TV license, water, get a bit of confidence up. Have a go, give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? You've got to pay it again later.
Stop shouting at people who are having a go, who can't provide you that remedy, that evidence, who can't do it for you. Stop shouting at people. And
There are no badges.
If you question anyone about whether they've got validity for it, it's your job to administer your affairs.
Take responsibility, grow up.
Yeah. Take the information and do with it what you feel you need to do with it. There's a lot of people out there that are putting a lot of effort in, and they don't need the grief because they're only trying to help. They're doing it through the goodness of their heart and the efforts that they put in. They mean well, and you just got to get stuck in and find out for yourself.
Definitely. Go on, Ed.
Alan, there was one thing that you said quite a few times earlier, and I think it was almost glossed over. I just want to pull it back and point out how important it is. I require.
Yeah.
You're straight into common law with I require.
Yeah, and right and proper.
Yeah, and everything is absolutely correct. And whoever is listening to that in whatever context, it's up to them to know what that actually means. So if you say to a judge, if a judge says, "Oh, do you want me to?" No, I require it of you. In other words, if you don't, I'm going to take you to task because you haven't. Yeah. You are taking the upper hand. When you write to somebody and say, "I do not recognise you, I require you provide a copy of any contract that you claim exists between us," I require is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, very much so.
Whether you use it in court, on legal documents, on lawful documents, or even if somebody comes to your door, I require you to identify yourself. A copper, I require you to identify yourself. When he asks you who you are, I'm not required to tell him who I am, but he's fucking required to tell me who he is.
There's the other thing, we get a lot of people that are joining this side of the fence and finding the meadow quite lush. But a lot of people listen, but they don't hear. As you get further on with your studies, words in everyday programs and things like that just jump out at you.
They do, yeah.
And you guys will get that regularly. You know, you'll watch a report and you'll know how they're dodging it or this and the other, and the wording they use.
Prime Minister's question time.
Today the government rejected. I reject.
Yeah.
You know, today the government rejected. Oh, okay, you sent me a letter. I reject your letter and I fuck off. Yeah. Notice this notice, you wanker. Fuck off because I require you to leave now.
Yeah, and a lot of people should listen and hear. And I'm a strong believer. Since ever I've started, I watch John Harris every month without fail. I go back to basics. Every month I'll watch that. It's an hour. And I'll watch it every single month. And you know what? Another word and another phrase comes out.
Good old John. I think part of it is that I think when we're going into these courts, because like Eddie's saying, I require you changing it to common law. If in fact that you've taken the address as Mr. and you've used postcodes, they're going to stand under the presumption that it's still commercial. And it's all the rebuttals. Everything stands as truth if it's not rebutted. And that is why, as I've told you many a time, Alan, discussing on other subjects, what you're working on is debunking that completely, just pulling the rug from completely under the feet, where I don't have to rebut anything because I'm acting in privately as a man. And that, I think, is the key. And I think you might be onto something, Paul.
Yeah. Just one other thing. You said, you can watch stuff. During my work, I go into a lot of people's houses. And sadly, I think I discovered today...
He's a burglar.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's still burglar.
Yeah. Today I discovered that Judge Rinder might be homosexual. But anyway... the other thing is, Judge Judy. I was in a customer's house today. They got Judge Judy on, and she said, "Here is your contract, which cannot be changed. Anything within these four corners." And I went, "Boom! There you go, four corners."
Yeah. Styles, dogma. Yeah, that's really funny. That.
Let's stick your address. Let's stick your name and address in a box. Now that's lifted off that letter. Everything else is just box standard bullshit.
Yeah, I used to watch Rumple and the Bailey.
You know what? Judge Judy's very good to understand what it's like at Chancery, because that's what they're dealing with. They're dealing with the you cause harm or loss, and that's how they balance it out.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, when they bang the hammer down and stand up and they take their case with them, it's because it's their case. They're taking it with them, and if they don't get up and fucking get out, they've made an order, and he's disappearing before you can give him a bill for his order. Yeah. That's why he's fucking getting up and walking out in his big black gown.
I saw an interesting analogy done by Carl Lentz, who said that if you're going on holiday, you pack your case, you concentrate on what's in your case. You don't concentrate on what somebody else is putting in their case, you concentrate on what is in your case. You're not interested in what's in their case, and that's what it's like in court. They're not interested in what's in your case. They've got their case, and they're just going, that's where I'm standing, right there. If they don't touch this 5p piece, I'm done. They can't get me. Go on, Jason.
I'm just going to say, I think Andy will wanting to wrap. I think he's probably had a busy day and he's wanting to wrap up now. So I just wanted to make just this last little point. I just wanted to ask you a question. I want to thank you, Alan. It's been a great, what I've heard and what I've taken part in. It's been a great listen, and there's been loads and loads of comments in the chat rooms and around about. But I just wanted to ask this question, Paul. I'm going to come back next week. I'm coming back next week on Monday. I think we're going to have the we would have the dopey old men, but Ady's not going to be here, are you? Are you going to be here?
No. I got a long time.
Okay, well, we're going to probably try and hook up with him in Thailand. So if he takes some Skype technology with him, I'm sure he'll be up at the times that we're going to be on. And
what do you mean? What do you mean by him being up at that time?
I was going to say at 3 o'clock. If you start at 7, it'll be fucking 1 in the morning. There's only one place I'll be up.
You're going to be the Viagra's still going to be flowing through your body, as, like, you know.
I'll be up in my bedroom alone with a can of Carling.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
All right. Well, if you're not there
he's
anyway,
his condoms up.
It'll be me, Paul, and Andy from on Monday. So, listen, I'm sorry, I seem to be taking over, but I just want to ask you a question, Paul. Before Andy wraps up, I just wanted to ask you: have you heard from Dan Bostock today? And if not, is it because it's Love a Muslim Day and he's in the corner of a room naked, masturbating and smoking a joint in the dark?
Well, I can neither confirm nor deny part of that question, but what I can answer is that no, I haven't received any messages off Dan yet. I know he's a busy fella, but he hasn't even looked at his messages, so as soon as I get any messages from him or any dates or times, I'll inform you as soon as I can.
Well, I did notice it on our local news that they had an event in Sheffield. It was like a Love a Muslim Day, and they got all people from backgrounds, and it's all really nice and it's really good. But I thought, you know, all it really is doing is identifying our differences and then exploiting that in trying to bring it together in some sort of way. Whereas if we just saw each other as people and not as the group that people identify with, and just don't be a cunt to anybody. And if you're not a cunt to anybody, then it's all gone. But I saw that today, and I just thought I'd bring it up. So if you're going to get Dan Bostock on, if he's capable. Then Aid, go on. Aid,
seriously,
hang on, whoa. Aid, you're next, right? You've got a minute. Webby's got a minute, and then Andy's going to wrap up because he's had a long day.
He's turning into a pumpkin, bless him.
And sorry, and a minute also for our guest as well.
I seriously would love it if Dan Bostock came on, because I think he's got some interesting stuff to say. But I realised today that I'm anti-sciatic because my fucking leg's killing me and I hate it.
What I wanted to ask you, Jason, was you being sarcastic about Love a Muslim Day? Because the only thing I've seen on mainstream media is Punish a Muslim Day.
No. It was organised. It happened in a number of cities across Britain. I think not very many. It weren't very big, but if you do a search for it, Love a Muslim Day, there was certainly something going on in Leeds or Sheffield. I can't remember because I wasn't really paying attention until it got to the bit where they were talking about people, coming together, and it's all very nice and it's all very good. But then what it does is then the Punish a Muslim. You see, this is in response to the Punish a Muslim Day, whereas the Punish a Muslim Day should have just been ignored.
Yeah.
Should have just been completely ignored, and people should have.
I have Muslim friends who have completely ignored Punish Muslim Day, and they've gone round with a big smile on their face. All the smiles have been reciprocated. I don't get it. As you just said, Jason, if you're a cunt, you're a cunt. Doesn't matter what colour, what creed, what religion. Doesn't matter. You're a cunt. Boom.
So what we all going to do for Theresa May Day holiday?
Well, she's a cunt.
She's a cunt. She's a cunt.
She's definitely a cunt. She's a diabetic cunt as well.
Anyway, come on, lads. Let Andy wrap up. He's falling asleep there. I can see him.
No worries, guys. It's been a great chat and always worth a couple of extra minutes. Looking forward to next week. Before we go, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the listeners. It seems word's really getting out, and Raconteurs news is spreading a bit wider these days. I'd like to thank everybody involved for that. And particularly all the listeners who share the posts and that sort of thing on social media. So, let their friends know. Like I always say, if you've got anything you think we're doing wrong, tell us. If you think we're doing things right, then tell your friends. Listeners in today? Australia, USA, Canada, Ireland, Germany. We've got a few in the UK. So it's just phenomenal. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to you guys. And thanks to Heath for the brilliant music. I'm going to play you out with one of my favourite tunes. Good night, folks.
Hello, this is Heath Dweft, and I listen to Raconteurs News every Tuesday night, 8 till 10 on autonomousmedia.net. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So I don't just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. Is it my voice, or my face, or the clothes that I wear? Cause something's getting me noticed in a bad way. I must say, I ain't looking for no shit, but it finds me. Particularly when I'm out driving. Slow down, it's a runabout, mate, not a racetrack. How the fuck did you pass your test? You're a pest, you got my heart beating in my chest. No wonder I'm so irate. Why don't you fucking indicate? I wish I had a shit gun ferret at your window, bitch. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself, poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So why don't I just stay and never go out? Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. So I drive and get my shit done quick. Don't wanna waste too much time on the streets with the pricks. I know they're gonna take my energy. Give me road rage, then I commit a felony. Score some weed, then I drive home readily. Hang my car keys up and calm down steadily. Lays on my mind when I let them get at me. Load of bombs, roller G, get stone, write a melody. Start getting high, having less of the hunches. Put it on hold while I answer the munches. Get about the dicks while I'm grinding the bunches. Really need to learn just to roll with the punches.
Algún día me perdonan, aquí te estaré esperando, porque yo era muy feliz abrías los ojos. Andaba por la noche y andaba muy perdido. Me faltaban que tus ojos me mostraran el camino. Caminar, porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos.
Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. Poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So what do? Just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble for me. Every day is trouble. Every day is trouble. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. Poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So what do? Just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. 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 Every day is trouble for me.